LaShawn McCoy ranked above David Johnson and Paul Perkins in the top 20? Stay tuned to find out why. Always, before we get started, we want to ask you guys, who are some players you have surprisingly ranked a little bit higher than the rest of maybe the experts or your friends or your buddies? Just leave a comment down below and tell us who you have ranked high, who you're expecting to kind of break out. So, Rob, you want to get started with your first tier?
Yeah, I'm going to get going with my first tier, but I want to say this. Okay, going into last year, there was a trend in fantasy football, and basically what the trend was, it was called the no running back move. The idea kind of was that running backs nowadays are unpredictable. Teams are getting away from that, having that one workhorse. And so basically the idea was, you know what, load up on your quarterbacks, your wide receivers, and then just take your running back really, really late. Don't concern yourself with getting a top-notch running back. That was kind of the idea going into last year. I wrote an article last year, and I strongly, strongly warned against that based on the idea of supply and demand. We broke down the number stats. We said that's a foolish, foolish mistake to make. Don't do that. Running backs hold high value. They're important to get in the draft, so on and so forth. And then after last year, what happened? Sure enough, all the other sites are jumping on this idea of the top of the draft needs to be your running backs. They kind of shift back to the old mentality of secure, good, healthy running backs early. I want to remind you guys that we were kind of ahead on that curve. And so once again, I'm going to give you one more nugget just like that this year. Okay, before I get going, don't be a fool. Don't be stupid. Don't be cute. Okay? These tier one running backs, okay, they should be the first three players taken off the board before anybody else, before any wide receivers or quarterbacks. If you're in a draft, these three guys should come off the board immediately. And here's my first three. Number one, I got Le'Veon Bell. Now, here's why I got him number one. I've got number one, Bell. Number two, Ezekiel Elliott. Number three, David Johnson. But why did I go with Bell over the other two? Well, one, it doesn't matter. If you get one of those three guys, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be set. They're great guys. They're horses. Now, some may argue that if you're in a PPR league, maybe look at a wide receiver. But the PPR argument only solidifies these guys as the first three picks because not only are they great running backs, but they catch the ball out of the backfield. Okay, so once again, these are the first three guys, Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, and David Johnson. Why did I choose Bell over the other two? Well, basically I did it for this reason. They're all great guys, but I felt like Bell has the best surrounding cast around him. Okay, you got Ben Roethlisberger, you've got Antonio Brown, you got Martavis Bryant coming back, and so it makes it more difficult for you to game plan and shut him down. If you decide that you're going to load the box, it's going to open up a huge game for Big Ben and Brown. So that's one reason. The other reason why is he has the biggest body of work. He's been in the league 4 seasons right now, and he's been successful every single one of them. He's solid, and he's young. He's actually younger than David Johnson. And so for that reason, I got Bell, my number one guy. Number two, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, initially, I had David Johnson ahead of Elliott, but I ultimately went with Ezekiel number two because the offensive line for Dallas is the best in the league, hands down. He's young, he's solid, he's a stud, he's going to be all right. Number three, I got David Johnson. He's got everything. Once again, he's big, he's physical, he's explosive, has great hands, and in fantasy terms, he's a complete back. Now, are there any drawbacks of those guys that I see? Well, number one, Le'Veon Bell has a hard time playing a full season. He's been injured, he's been suspended, but right now he's healthy. He's got no looming suspensions. For number two, Ezekiel Elliott, do I have any concerns? Well, other than the fact that he's still only a second-year player and he's not really proven. And then do I have any concern with David Johnson? Once again, I really don't have any concerns with any one of these three. But I will say this, David Palmer is struggling. His play is not the greatest last year. He's on the downside of 30. And then the other concern, well, he did have a slight step back in his yards per carry last year. But once again, he still had a healthy yards per carry of 4.23. And so once again, my tier one running backs, the first three players that should be taken off of any board, number one, Le'Veon Bell. Number two, Ezekiel Elliott. Number three, David Johnson. Now, Christian, give me your tier one.
All right, my tier one actually consists of 4 running backs. These are 4 guys that I love, that I'm excited about. I think they can be great. And you know what? I understand that I'm kind of shaking things up a little bit, and I'm actually might get martyred for some of these, some of the ordering that I do in this. Number one, Elliott. Love Elliott. First of all, he is so young, and he is getting so many carries. He led the league last year, not only in yards, but in carries. 322 carries. The next best was LeGarrette Blount at 299. That's a lot. An extra 23 carries in the season. A lot can be done with that. In fact, he has proved a lot he did with that. Additionally, 5.1 yards per carry. That's insane. I trust that offensive line the most. I think he's the safest pick. Finally, he's been working this offseason, and I think he's going to get more involved in that passing game. Next, I have Le'Veon Bell. I mean, last year he combined for over 1,800 yards rushing and receiving. Over 1,800 yards rushing and receiving, and he missed 4 games. He missed 4 games. I mean, that's phenomenal. He is by far the most athletic and talented running back in the NFL. My only problem is his touchdowns. He's got a touchdown ceiling. There are too many weapons on that team for him to get over 15, 16, close to 20 combined touchdowns. So I just can't rank him number 1. I think that Elliott could get more touchdowns this year. Third, here's where some people are going to kind of think that I need to be in a loony bin. Third is LeSean McCoy. I love this guy. Okay, LeSean McCoy is a beast. He has had kind of an up and down career for a while, but as we look back, hindsight's 20/20, and we learned it wasn't LeSean McCoy, it was that offense. And we're learning he can play and be a star in Buffalo. Even more than that, last year, LeSean McCoy was a touchdown machine. He got 14 touchdowns. What makes that even more impressive is his backup, Mike Gillislee, who is now gone, scored 9 touchdowns. 9 touchdowns have left the Buffalo Bills offense. And you know who's there to pick up those extra carries, those extra yards, and most importantly, those extra touchdowns? That's LeSean McCoy. I think that he's aged a little bit, and I think that maybe we'll see his yards per carry drop from what they were, from being like, I believe it was a 5.4 yards per carry or something. I mean, it was very phenomenal. I think we might see that drop down to lower in the 5s or high 4s. That is still more than sufficient. Yep, we're looking right here. 5.4 looks exactly. We're going to see that maybe drop a little bit, but he's still going to get over 1,000 yards for sure, and I think he's just going to be an end zone machine. Finally, fourth, my last guy in the tier, David Johnson. Everybody is hating me right now. A lot of people have him ranked 1 even, but I got to bump him down to 4. I got to. Click on the page. He's a great running back, but he had the lowest yards per carry of those 4 running backs that I've just named. And he's great, and his 20 touchdowns last season were unbelievable. I mean, it was insane. But first of all, we're going to see touchdown regression simply because he's not going to get 20 touchdowns again. He's not going to get 20 touchdowns again. Additionally, that offense is looking worse and worse every year. And you know what I'm going to do? If I'm playing the Arizona Cardinals, my defense, we're going to cover David Johnson, and we're going to shut him down. And then maybe we'll do a little bit in stopping Larry Fitzgerald. But that's pretty much all they have there. So I think we're going to see major regression from him. And finally, he also had the least amount of yards. He's not a big yardage guy. And so I think that last year's touchdowns, though phenomenal, were a fluke. And sorry, I kind of maybe talked on a little bit there. But how about you, Rob? You can start us off with your tier 2.
Well, before we do it, I want to talk about some of the statements you made there in your tier 1 guys. And so, our rankings are very similar. I've got Le'Veon Bell number 1. You got him number 2. You talked about him being a touchdown liability, basically. And maybe initially would have seemed to be that way. I think double-digit touchdowns are kind of the standard. Mm-hmm. And, if your running back or wideout can get double digits, that's a good year. And you're right, now he had his 3rd year, he was injured. And so we'll just take that one, throw it out. He only played 6 games. But his 1st, 2nd, and 4th year, he ended up with 9, 11, and 9 touchdowns. But the year that he had 9, he only played 13 games. The year that he played 16, he had double digits with 11. And last year he had 9 and only 12 games. And so he really projects out to have double-digit touchdowns had he played 16 games. So once again, we'll see. But you are right. I think he does have a lot of mouths to feed there.
Well, here's my thing. And you know what I'm going to say? He will get double-digit touchdowns this season. But what I mean as far as that touchdown ceiling, to be the number one fantasy scoring running back, you need at least 14 touchdowns. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, that's hard to say. It depends. Are you in a PPR league? What's your scoring system look like? Some other factors there. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if you take them top three overall, you want more than 10 touchdowns. You want a guy who's 14 to 16.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I also agree that David Johnson is the easiest back to stop. If
Yeah.
I'm playing him, I'm going to load the box. To me, what keeps him relevant, and I think what keeps him kind of in that top three conversation is his ability to catch the ball. 80 catches last year. And so even if they're shutting down the run, David Johnson's going to see touches. They're going to get him out. They're going to get him some looks out in the flat. And so I think he still stays up there, number three. Now, before I get to my tier two, and maybe I should just start with there because my tier two is part of the reason why I kind of disagree with your number three guy real quick. And so here's my tier two running backs. Here's what I would say about my tier two. They're very solid, barring any unforeseen circumstances, like an injury. You can depend on them to produce very good numbers. Once again, these guys are solid. They're great backs. They're number one backs. But I don't quite put them in that same tier as Bell, Elliott, and Johnson. My number four back, okay, is LeSean McCoy. Now, here's why I'm hesitant to put him up in that tier one, why I have him in my tier two. His yards per carry was great, 4.7 is his career. Last year, 5.4. He's been a great running back, but one, he's a little undersized. And at 29 years of age, he's getting close to that 30-year mark where running backs inevitably take a decline. Mm-hmm. And so I've got some concerns there. I do have to ask you a question, though, before I get into this a little bit. Now, I know a little bit about Christian here because we played in a league together last year. And he had LeSean McCoy. You know, it was a great pick. He had three solid backs. And I can't remember who your three backs were, but for the first couple of weeks, you sat him on your bench. Now, you've done a 180 a year later, and you love this guy. Explain that to me.
You know, I had three solid backs. I had Melvin Gordon, Jordan Howard, and LeSean McCoy in that league. And there's some talented running backs, and I just kept sitting LeSean McCoy and just kept sitting him, and I liked the other guys, and I kind of hating on LeSean McCoy, to be honest. I dropped him down maybe a little bit far in my rankings last year, and something about him I just wasn't certain about the Buffalo situation there. And it was just one of those things. I repented. I was wrong. You know, LeSean McCoy, he's the man in that system, and he can do it. They got a good offensive line. And, you know, that offense, that passing game, isn't horrible enough. You know, they can stretch the field a little bit. He keeps himself in that passing game. And I just... I was my little bit nerves with him. They were assuaged, and I think that he's gonna be great. And like I said, with the added carries and the added end zone carries, particularly, I think he's gonna really step up this year. Okay. However, you're right with the age. I mean, if you're in a dynasty or a keeper league, he definitely loses some value because you're maybe looking at this year, next year, and an okay third year, and that's maybe at best. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, at age 29. He's right at that age 30. Running backs inevitably. I don't care how talented you are, how solid you are. Very, very few backs can stay productive after the age of 30. I do think he's got one more year left in the, kind of left there, and some more gas in the tank, as they say. And so I think we can expect him to have a good year. He is my tier two. I do have some question marks about his age, but once again, he's my tier two. He's my number four running back, LeSean McCoy. Number five, Devontae Freeman. Now, Devontae Freeman, he's a guy that I had some concerns going into last year also. His yards per carry weren't great. He had 3.8, 4.0, which is okay, but it's not a great yards per carry. Although he had a lot of touchdowns, he caught the ball in the backfield. Well, last year he jumps up to 4.8 yards per carry, and so he really solidified himself as a solid back last year. I do have some concerns for the guy. Now, once again, 2 years ago, 14 touchdowns, last year 13. He's proven that he can run the ball, he can catch the ball. I do wonder about the impact of losing his offensive coordinator and what impact that's going to have. And here's my other concern. His backup, Coleman, is a very, very good running back, and he's going to steal away carries. But once again, it's hard to ignore his last 2 years. He's had 1,000 yards. He had lots of catches, lots of TDs. Number five is Devontae Freeman. Number six, I got J.I.J. Now, I love this guy last year. I was huge on him. Now, the one thing that I did think was with Arian Foster there, I thought that maybe Jay was maybe a year away from stardom, and I was wrong about that because he's a star right now. 3 games with over 200 yards in one season. You know what? Running backs are happy if they have one game in their entire career to break 200 yards. The guy's solid. He's big. He can do it all. Once again, I'm excited to see what he's going to do for a full season being the starting back there. I love J.I.J. Once again, my number 6 back. Number 7, Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's my number 7 back. Now, last year, he came on. He did end the year with a yards per carry of 3.9, which is not great. Okay, and so number 7's kind of high for a back who still hasn't had 1,000 yards, who his yards per carry aren't great. But here's a stat I want to share with you guys. Okay, going into the last 5 games prior to his injury, so the 5 games leading up to that, his yards per carry were 4.6. He really was starting to come into his own, and he was getting stronger as the year went on. And all those seem to indicate to me that he's finally come to be the back that they drafted and expect he could be out of college. Number 7 is Melvin Gordon. Number 8, I got Jordan Howard. Man, was this guy good last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he dominated 5.21 yards per carry. That is phenomenal. And he did it playing for a terrible, terrible Chicago team. If you're a Bears fan out there, I feel bad for you guys. You guys are years away from rebuilding, okay? It's probably good that you play fantasy football. That way you have something to do on Sunday. When
Maybe
your
you
team...
can win in the next couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. So he had a great year. And he dominated, and he played for not a great team. His numbers are impressive, especially when you consider the surrounding cast that he had. I do have some serious concerns here. Okay, if I'm the defensive coordinator and I'm playing Chicago, okay, Christian, you're the defensive coordinator and you're going into Chicago. What's your game plan?
I tell you what, you take down the only weapon that Chicago even remotely has in Jordan Howard.
Jordan Howard, yeah. So I think a lot of teams are going to stack the box.
Yeah, 8 or even sometimes 9 guys in the box can happen. I don't think that's unrealistic to expect. We've seen it many times in the past.
Yeah, I'm not a Jay Cutler fan, but honestly, I think he was an improvement over Glennon, which is the quarterback this year. So I think it makes it even worse.
Does that take much to be an improvement over Glennon? That's the
No.
question.
And so, you know what this feels a lot like to me this year? The whole Jordan Howard situation. It reminds me of Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley had a great rookie season. And last year, teams focused, they shut him down. And so I see that happening again. Now, with that said, I had to rank Howard number 8. He had too good of a year. He's too talented, too young to ignore. But once again, he's my number 8 guy. Okay, don't pass him up. But temper your expectations in his second year. Number 9, DeMarco Murray. Okay, loved him last year. I drafted him. He helped carry me to the postseason, best record in the regular season. He did everything. He ran well. He scored TDs. He was effective in the passing game. I do see a slight drop in his numbers. Okay, and here's why. Okay, once again, he's getting up there in age, and he's got a really good backup. Okay, Henry is not a slouch by any stretch. In fact, the last 8 games of the season, you saw Murray's carries per game drop, and at that same time, you saw Henry's carries increase. And so I think if I'm a Tennessee coach, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep my guy fresh. I got this talented back in Henry. And so I think you're going to see a drop in DeMarco Murray's numbers, but he's still a great running back. He's my number 9 guy. Number 10, Lamar Miller. Now, Lamar Miller is going to round out my Tier 2 running backs. Now, last year he disappointed so many teams. Okay? A lot of leagues he was top 3. And upon further review, though, I was looking at it, and I considered his year and what he did. And I think he actually might have had a really good year last year. Let me explain what I mean by that. Okay. He topped 1,000 yards. Okay. Even though he missed 2 games. His yards per carry were a career low, yes, okay? But he did have 6 TDs. He caught the ball of the backfield. He had 3 games over 100 yards rushing. And when you consider that everybody on that team struggled last year, Hopkins had a terrible year. Osweiler was, I don't know, a joke, would I say?
Can you even call that guy a quarterback sometimes? It
Oh, it
just
was
looks like he's
brutal. It was
lost on the
brutal.
field.
Yeah, and so this guy's a workhorse. He's proven he can be a number 1 guy. He can handle the workload. He can catch the ball. He can do it all. Any improvement at quarterback is going to help his numbers rebound. So, once again, I got Lamar Miller as my number 10 back. Christian.
Well, I just have to ask you, Lamar Miller, I like what you had to say about him. What is a workhouse?
He's a workhorse.
Workhorse. No, you're right.
Yeah.
He was I completely agree with you on that pick. He was a disappointment. But he's going to get his carries. He's going to stay on the field. He's going to break 1,000 yards. And I think we'll see a little bit of an incline with improvement at quarterback this year. Now on to my guys. My number 5. My number 2 guy and my number 1 guy and my number 2 tier ranked 5th overall is Melvin Gordon. And like you said, that 3.9 yards per carry is very scary. But here's a few things that he did right. First of all, the Chargers were pounding him on the goal line. They are not afraid to let him run it in and get those end zone touches. And so partially that may be a reason that came down a little bit, which is still not great. Another thing that I like to see about Melvin Gordon, he really reminds me of Adrian Peterson. He would go 3/4 of a game just getting pounded 1, 2, or 3 yard gains, and he just wasn't looking good. And then you know what would happen? He'd just wear a team down, and by the fourth quarter, he'd break an 80-yard touchdown, and that's when he'd pass 100 yards for you that day. And that was kind of that's kind of how he did it. I think we're going to see some improvement from him, a little bit of improved offensive line, hopefully this year. The offense as a whole looks sharper, and they got some wide receivers in there, and hopefully Keenan Allen will be healthy. That might open up the field for him even more. Once again, I think he's young. I think he's to step it up, but you kind of covered everything there. At number 6, I have Devontae Freeman. I was going to put him above Gordon, but I just had to drop him down. Tevin Coleman, he just takes away touchdowns, he takes away yards, takes away time on the field and catches, and he just takes away a little bit too much. That being said, Devontae Freeman is a great running back in both the rushing and passing game. And you know what? If you're an Atlanta offensive coordinator, you are spoiled with weapons there, I'll tell you. There's some great talent there. And so those 3 factors, there's a lot of talent to spread the ball around, so he's not always getting it in the end zone. The other thing, he's a bit small, and he plays a lot in the passing game. However, he still has impressed me in the run game. But, I bumped down a little bit. That being said, I think he's great. And if you can get him 6th overall, that sounds like a good pick to me. I wouldn't be complaining. Number 7, I went with Jay Ajayi. Man, he was exciting last year. He was just great. Like you said, 3 games with over 200 yards. That is so rare to see. He's such an explosive back. Even keeps himself involved in that pass game a little bit. Not too much. He's not known for his catching ability, but you know what happens? He's good enough that when they need to pass the ball, he's not coming off the field. And that's really what matters, is it not? Number 8, DeMarco Murray. Oh, DeMarco Murray's great for you. I played in the league with you last year, right, Rob? And and you had him, and he was great for you. He was awesome.
He did, yeah.
But I tell you what, he's getting older, and Derrick Henry looks sharp. I think by the end of the season, we're going to be looking at Derrick Henry as the starter maybe. Not quite by the end of the season, but I think by the end of the year, we'll be able to look into next season and see, that is just pretty inevitable. It's going to happen, and so I'm certain he's going to start to eat away at carries and touches for an aging DeMarco Murray. That's another thing. He's going to be 30 when the season starts. I think that we could see some decline in his play. He only averaged 4.4 yards per carry last year, which is fine, but it's not really impressive. And you were just questioning, and you just wrote something. He's talking to me while I'm talking, and he's like, your notes say that you have him number 7, and you have Murray 7 and Ajayi 8. And, when I spoke it, I flipped. And that's because I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, I got to switch that. And this is kind of a last-second switch I'm making, but,
Thank you. That makes sense because, okay.
You got to be real confused. And that's the thing about these videos. After this, we will be constantly updating our running back rankings. There's a lot of research into this to get our rankings very exact. It's going to take us even a few more weeks to get them right where we want them, but I'll move on and quit rambling on. Number 9, Carlos Hyde. For years, Hyde has been a disappointment, particularly the last 2 seasons, but I'm telling you, this is Hyde's breakout year. He's going to get 1,000 yards. I think he may even find the end zone 10 times. I think this could be the year for him. They 49ers now, they have Kyle Shanahan, who seems to be kind of an offensive guru. At least he did last year. We'll see if maybe he can repeat some of that offensive dominance with Carlos Hyde. Additionally, an improved pass game might help him a little bit. One of the other things that you got to say for him, and this is huge in fantasy football, just the fact that he's got the job and he ain't fighting for it against anybody else. That is huge. Just to say that there's not another guy who's about to take his job. Just to say he's going to get all the carries, that's huge. Looking at his backup, Tim Hightower, he ain't taking the job. And I see you got him pulled up right now as you're looking into their quarterback, Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer isn't an amazing quarterback. He's not a Super Bowl or a dynasty quarterback, but he is an improvement. He's a step up. And then that improvement in that passing game, I think, is going to be just a boost Carlos Hyde needs to be able to run the ball and take a little bit of pressure off of him. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling off my wrong rankings. I go through 12 here even, so you're going to be annoyed. I'm going to be talking forever. Here at 10, we have Todd Gurley. Last year, he was a huge disappointment. People were just, man, if you picked him last year, I'm sorry for you, probably kicking yourself. But you know what? Got to rank him 10. I think he makes a slight bounce back from last season. Again, he is the starter. You don't have to worry about him losing his job. You don't have to worry about him not getting carries. He is the man. And he is the man who this season will get 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I tell you what, that's about all you can ask for at the 10th running back spot. A safe running back who's going to get you 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, that's what I'm telling you he's going to get. I pretty much guarantee it, although it was a sketchy phrase. I don't want to jinx him there. 11, Lamar Miller. I don't know how much I'm going to talk about Lamar Miller. You pretty much hit on him. He was a disappointment. But when you look closer into his numbers, the only reason that he was such a huge disappointment was because a lot of people at least had him expected to be really high. And then, of course, he didn't quite do it. Finally, in my final guy, in my top two, or my second tier, I should say, is Leonard Fournette. The word I have highlighted on our rankings posted to the site is pure volume. This guy is going to be on the field for the Jacksonville Jaguars every down. They're going to use him in the passing game. They're going to use him in the running game. He's going to get carries, receptions. He's going to get them at the 10-yard line, the 5, at the 50, the 40. They're going to use him. He's talented. He's athletic. I love what I saw from him in college. He's a big back. He's a very big back. 6'1", 235. And he isn't just a big back. He plays like a big back. You see some of the big running backs who play a little bit pat a cake, a little bit soft. He does not play soft. I guess I'll quit talking here. Rob, what about your tier 3?
Well, before I get into my tier 3, a lot of what you said there I enjoy, agree with a lot of it. I do have some concerns or issues with your tier 2 picks. Now, maybe you define your tier 2s differently than I do. But for me, tier 2, Carlos Hyde and Todd Gurley, I just can't do it. I just can't put him in that tier 2. To me, that question marks. I like Hyde. I think that Kyle Shanahan's going to help that team. I think he's big and physical and runs hard. But what makes you think, well, obviously you must feel like he's going to stay healthy this year because that's his knock. He's been in the league 3 years, and he's played 14, 7, and 13 games. So that's my concern. Why I couldn't have my tier 2 is I just don't know if this guy is showing the ability to stay healthy. If he does, yeah, he could have a bust-out season. You could have a steal in the draft. Guy could hit 1,500 yards. But once again, there's too many question marks for me to put him there. And then the other one is Todd Gurley. Now, Todd Gurley had a bad year last year, coming off of a great rookie season. But what's really changed to think that he's going to rebound? I mean, they've got a new coach, obviously.
Both of those guys, I think, are guys who I call them disappointment blindness. A lot of how people view them is affected through these disappointment goggles, beer goggles, where guys are expecting them to be absolutely astronomical, just beasts, monsters. They're going to go for 1,500 yards, and then when they don't, he's a bust and he's terrible, and don't take him ever, and people get so emotional. And let's calm down and look at the numbers. Quite simply, with fantasy, opportunity often beats out talent, does it not?
Well, opportunity is half the battle, yeah. I mean, Tevin Coleman, if he had an opportunity to start, he would be phenomenal. But right now, as a backup, he's not going to be top 10. I believe Tevin Coleman, if he was a starter, could be a top 10 running back. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I agree with you. Opportunity is half the battle in fantasy football, and he's a starter.
These guys get on the field. They get carries. They're starting. They're going to get 1,000 yards. I mean, that right there is, first of all, I think safety. I don't think Gurley can get any worse this season. But like I said, some of the reason they're ranked where they are is simply security. The other thing is Hyde. You talk about, he only played 13 games last season. That's impressive. He had 988 yards in 13 games, and he played 3 or 4 of those games he played, he was banged up on a bad offense. So I'm just, maybe you're right. I understand you have some questions about them, but I think to call them scary or unsafe would be maybe a bit extreme. And I think you might be, like I said, a lot of people affected by that recent disappointment bias.
Well, I talk about that in an article, biggest mistakes people have. One of them is they need to learn to put their emotions aside. Don't live in the past. Whether it's good or bad, you need to put that aside and look at the numbers. And so hopefully I'm not tainted by what he did last year. Would I call them scary picks? I'm not sure. Here's where those guys would fall, because those guys you mentioned, they are in my tier 3. Here's my tier 3 running backs. One, they're very good picks. They're considered starters, but they have some question marks, which keep them from being top 10 elite running backs. So here's my tier 3. My number 11 in my first tier 3 is Leonard Fournette. Okay, I love this guy. He brings everything to the table: size, explosiveness, good hands. And he has a great opportunity at Jacksonville, okay, who are desperate to find a legitimate running game as Yeldon. That experiment failed. Obviously, that's not going to work out. In fact, I almost want to call him this year's Ezekiel Elliott. The only thing he doesn't have going for him is the offensive line. Once again, Dallas's offensive line is the best in the league. But once again, I love this guy. He's going to be great. Grab him early, play him. If you're near a keeper league and you can get this guy, you can get him and run him for 10 years. He'll be your man. Number 12, my number 2, tier 3, is Isaiah Crowell. Now, this guy has showed flashes, okay, of being a great back. And then last year, he added a whole other element to his game. He caught 40 passes out of the backfield, and so now he's become a more complete running back. And he has no competition. It's what you said, Christian. He's the guy. Yeah. Okay, there's nobody on that team. He's going to get the carries. So my only concerns have nothing to do with him. If I have any concerns for Isaiah Crowell, it's the team around him. Mm-hmm. Once again, Cleveland's, well, it seems like I was going to say Cleveland's rebuilding, but I think they're always rebuilding, aren't they? So that's my one concern. My number 13 guy is Todd Gurley. Now, you're right. Todd was the guy. He got the carries. But I'm still concerned because with all that last year, all that volume he had, he still only had 6 TDs. He didn't break 1,000 yards rushing, and his yards per carry were 3.18. Now, I don't blame him for that. I think he's young, he's talented, his future is bright. Okay? The problem with why he struggled last year was his quarterback, wide receivers, and the offensive line play, which for me, they haven't done enough in the offseason to improve that. I think you will see a bump up in his numbers. I expect he will get close to 1,000 yards and maybe around 8 TDs. But to me, they haven't done enough in the offseason to change the deficiencies they had. I think teams are still going to focus on shutting down Todd Gurley. My number 14 back is Carlos Hyde. Now, adding offensive guru Kyle Shanahan's only going to help. Okay, once again, my concerns I mentioned to you is him staying healthy. He's one of those guys, if he could stay on the field, the big what if, he could end up with 1,500 yards. Okay, now last year he missed 3 games, but that does make his 988 yards rushing actually more impressive. My number 15 back, okay, is Spencer Ware. Okay, everything is in place for him to have a breakout season. Jamal Charles is gone. He can catch the ball. He was fairly effective last year as a lead back. Okay, now we did see a drop off after week 6 in production. And so for me, the real question is, can he remain effective for a full 16 games? I think that he can. I think he's worth serious consideration as a number 2 fantasy back on your team. He falls into my tier 3. And here's rounding out my tier 3 running backs. I like this guy. Keep an eye on him. He could be the steal of the draft, Eddie Lacy. I've always liked the guy, which is hard to say because I'm a Vikings fan. But I have to admit, he's a big physical back. He runs well. The question is never been, can he bang out yards? Can he run well? He can do that. The only question is, can he keep his weight down? And can he stay healthy? Now, as of now, okay, he's been making all his offseason weight requirements. They say he's in great shape. He's looking good. And he plays for Seattle. And Seattle has shown already with Marshawn Lynch, they love running backs that are physical and can pound the ball. To me, he fits right into that same style of back. And so I like Eddie Lacy once again. What I would say, watch his progress, and we'll keep you updated on how he's progressing in the preseason. But right now, Eddie Lacy is my number 16 back. Now, before you get into that, Christian, before you give me yours, push back a little bit. You got any concerns where I'm at with my tier 3?
Yeah, a lot of concerns. Eddie Lacy, no. 3 words. Just Eddie Lacy, nope, not happening. 16? You rate him 16th?
I do.
No. I mean, he's just been a disappointment. And you know what? I'm going to tell you that you're excited for him to go to Seattle there and be the guy finally, and to step up and to be the man. And I'm telling you, I don't see it happening. A lot of running backs in recent years, since Marshawn Lynch, have tried to be the man. And you know what happens? They make one fumble, they have one bad game, they struggle to average a lot of yards. And you know what instantly happens? Oh, well, we're done. Christine Michael, it wasn't good enough. CJ Procise, it wasn't good enough. Thomas Rawls, it wasn't good enough. Since Marshawn Lynch left, no one's been good enough for them. And I know what you're about to say. I know what you're about to say. And no, his 5.1 yards per carry are not good enough. He only did that over 5 games. Other than that, he's averaging in the low 4s.
Yeah, he's at a career yards per carry of 4.4. The first 2 years in the league, he had 1,078 his first year, and he followed up with a 1,039. His first year had 11 TDs, and next year he had 13. Okay, so he's in the league 4 years now. He has struggled staying healthy, keeping his weight down. But it's not like this guy hasn't proven himself once again. And so I love this guy. Here's one, you know what? Put it on the calendar, mark me down. Let's look back a year from now and see where we're at. I like Eddie Lacy. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is with this guy. I think he's going to have a big year.
You know, I don't think he'll be terrible, but to have him a big year, that's too much for me. I don't think he's an all sellout. I think that he'll come in there, be the most talented running back. But the Seahawks are not afraid to run the ball with 4 different guys in a single game. And you know what? Make that 5, because Russell Wilson's going to run the ball too.
Well, I'll tell you what. Do me a favor, okay? The leagues that we drafted together, stick to your guns. Let him slip to me. I'd be happy to take him in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, wherever he falls, and get myself a great number 2 back once again.
You know what? That sounds great, but promise me you'll start him against me.
Oh, I will. I will, definitely. So, Christian, give me your number, your Tier 3 running backs at this point.
All right, so my Tier 3 actually runs from 13 to 22. I seem to have a bit bigger tiers than you. I don't know what it is. Just like 1 or 2 players bigger, so I'm kind of rolling through a bit faster than you. But number 13, Isaiah Crowell. Big highlighted words. I put increasingly rare. And that is increasingly rare where a talented running back such as Crowell is on an offense where he is going to get to be mostly the man. I say mostly because I expect Duke Johnson is going to rob some carries from him. I think Duke Johnson, they like him there. In fact, beginning of last year, he was supposed to be the guy. Let's not forget that. And he was a slight disappointment. I say that sarcastically. He was kind of a major disappointment. And Crowell moved into that role, and I like him. I believe I'm in a keeper league, and I'm keeping Crowell, but I just don't want to rank him too highly. 13th is still good. Let's get that straight. 13th is still a good spot. I have maybe an occasional knock on him, but I think he's very athletic. I think he is the man. I think he is. I don't even worry about the Browns offense, because the Browns offense can't get any worse than it was last year, and it was horrible. And that one kind of knight in shining armor for them is Isaiah Crowell. You can bet they're going to keep going back to him. 14, and people are saying this is too high, and people are kind of outraged. You are, particularly looking at my rankings, not trusting them, I guess. But 14, Mike Gillislee. He's the new Blunt in New England. You can look at game film of Gillislee, who played great and got 9 touchdowns as a backup running back. But that's not even what I'm going to say. The New England Patriots are an unbelievable football team. I mean, let's just know. They're an unbelievable football dynasty. Since the year 2000, they have dominated, and they're constantly making playoffs. And I tell you what, Bill Belichick knows what he wants. And when free agent came around, they got Gillislee. They went after him, and they gave him money, which something is very rare for them to do at the running back position. I'm not saying that Gillislee is going to get 18 touchdowns again. That is, quite honestly, it's unrealistic. But 10, 12 touchdowns? Yeah. 10, 12 touchdowns, I think, for sure. 15, and you ranked him far earlier, and people are saying this is way too low, but I'm gonna have to, if I if I really trust what I'm thinking, if I really trust what I've evaluated about this player, he has to be here. Jordan Howard. 2 words, scares me. That offense is ugly. It's bad. I mean, we're going to see a lot of 3-and-outs from them this year. That's a lot of pick sixes. We're going to see a lot of fumbles. We're going to see a lot of bad football from the Bears this year on offense.
Let me ask you a question. You mind if I chime in for a second?
Yeah, chime in all you want.
Okay, so what we're having here is you're saying that he's a lot like Todd Gurley last year.
As I was about to say, he's going to catch a case of that Todd Gurley syndrome.
Okay. So you look at it. Jordan Howard actually had a better rookie season yards per carry than Todd Gurley. Okay, and you're saying he's going to have a drop off because his offense is terrible, which I agree with you. Okay, I think you're spot on there. Which offense or which surrounding cast is worse right now if you compare the Rams or the Bears? Because you have a big difference in the rankings between Howard and Gurley. So just help me understand that a little bit.
That's tough. It's close because they both kind of suck. Let's be honest here. I tell you what. I think Jordan Howard is a little bit better in the passing game than Gurley, and I'll give you that. But at least the Rams have an offensive line that I trust. That Bears offensive line is brutal. They don't have talented wide receivers, though neither do the Rams. Kevin White has been a huge disappointment, not only with his injuries, but simply he's been on the field a little bit. He's just been bad. And then the other guy, Cameron Meredith, we were using him as week-to-week pickups last year to fill in for injuries and bye weeks and stuff, and he was workable, but he was not good as a wide receiver. I'm just bad offensive line. If I'm playing Chicago, Jordan Howard is going to get beat, battered, bruised. We're going to crush that guy. We're going to shut his hopes down. So now you're gonna let me guess. You're either going to tell me that Jordan Howard is too good to be stopped by a bad offense, or that their offensive line is better than people give them credit. So what are you going to go for? What's this argument?
Well, you know what? I agree with a lot of what your assessment is. I just think that the argument of why he's going to slip is the same argument why Gurley can't be trusted again this year. And yet I think you've got about 7 or 8 spots between them in the rankings. That's all. That's basically all I'm kind of pointing out. And you know what? You're right. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a coward there because I have him still probably ranked too high when I see a fall off this year. And maybe it's an adjustment I'll make as we get closer to the season. That's all.
Yeah. Coming in at 16, I guess we're just going to have to disagree on that one, and we'll see who is right. And you are right to an extent, and I have thought about bumping him up a little bit. But I tell you what, I got to stick to my guns, and he is at the very best that I can justify ever ranking him would be 13th. He does not move up into the next tier because he scares me. He will always be a tier 3 for me. But we're gonna move on. My next guy is LeGarrette Blount. 18 touchdowns is phenomenal. But I'll be honest, he ain't getting 18 this year. He ain't getting 18 with Philadelphia. They're no New England. But here's the thing. Philadelphia has spent many years not having good running backs. Now, for a while, they had LaShawn McCoy, but before him, they kind of struggled to get their power back. And since then, they've struggled, even they had, Brian Westbrook. But a lot of times they haven't had their power back other than when they had LaShawn McCoy for a while. And especially since they let go of him, they've been trying to find their guy. And Matthews wasn't it, and Smallwood wasn't it, and Sproles is too old. And I don't trust any of the running backs there. Garrett Blount is going to come in. He's going to get his carries, and he's going to get 10 to 12 touchdowns. That right there is safety. I think he's going to get close to 1,000 yards. I think he's going to take that job. I think he's impressive. Like I said, 18 touchdowns will not happen. That's just that'll be his career high, I bet you. But got to rank him at 16 for his ability to find the end zone. Tell you what, some running backs just can't do it. They just can't do it. I'll move on here to Mark Ingram. I like to call Mark Ingram the rags to riches story gone wrong. Last year, Mark Ingram, for many years, Mark Ingram was expected to be a star, and he just never could quite do it. And as I predicted before last season started, he did it. He finally broke 1,000 yards. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry. He received for 300 yards and he had 4 touchdowns in the receiving game, and which is huge for an offense that's passing the ball like a ton. But I bump him down to 17 simply because they signed Peterson. First of all, I think Peterson will at least steal 400 yards from him. I'm thinking 400 to 600 in my mind, which is a lot of yards to take away from a back from Ingram who can barely reach 1,000. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Peterson, but he's going to take some yards away. Additionally, I think that shows a huge lack of trust in Mark Ingram. I think it's almost like the Saints' way of saying, like, that's not our man. Like, them like, oh, no, we don't want to associate with him. Move on here. 18 is Paul Perkins. We've been talking. We like Paul Perkins. In fact, I think he could quickly jump up from number 18. I have to keep him at 18, however, because he wasn't unbelievable last year. He only got 456 yards and didn't rush for any touchdowns. But here's the thing that you have to look at. Sometimes you got to pay closer attention with running backs. He had only 5 games last year with over 10 carries. 4 of those 5 came in the last 4 games. And in his last game of the season, he got the most carries. He got 21 carries in a 19-10 win over Washington, in which he got his first 100-yard rushing game. And he actually averaged 4.9 yards that game. So you see at the beginning, your first game he got 0 carries, and then he got 8 carries, 9, and he's just starting low. You look at, I believe I correct myself, I was mistaken. Those were yards. He used to get 2 carries for 8 yards, 2 carries for 9, 2 for 10, 4 for 12. And it wasn't really until those last 4 games they gave him the ball 15, 11, 15, and 21 times. So I tell you what, that's Paul Perkins' job. He's going to go out, he's going to get it, he's going to get in that passing game a little bit. I think he can be pretty good. I think he was surprising people this year. I know you kind of agree with me, but you feel like maybe that's a bit high?
I don't know if it's a bit high. I've got Paul Perkins ranked number 17, and you've got him there ranked number 18, so it's very close. The difference was I put him in my tier 4, he's in your tier 3, and so that's kind of where we differ. It's not necessarily we are in the rankings overall, but what tier you place him in.
Number 19, Bilal Powell. The Jets' offense is just terrible. Like, it's just horrible. Like, they didn't add a single piece to that offense this year, and yet they're still letting wide receivers walk away left and right, like all over the place. Like, just boop, guys are leaving, they're gone. We don't even need Brandon Marshall, apparently. Like, no quarterback, no offensive line. That being said, Bilal Powell is a great running back. He's talented. I love what I've seen with him. I think he could have been a star last year had they not been rolling with Forte, who turned out to be a major bust. I put him at 19. I think his talent is better than 19, but that offense is worse. We got this, hashtag Todd Gurley syndrome. He's going to catch the Todd Gurley disease or whatever, and he's going to get real limited. Next is Tevin Coleman. Ranking a backup running back at 20th just felt wrong to me. It just felt weird. It shouldn't happen. But he got 8 touchdowns last year. And he got about 800 yards. I don't have it up in front of me. But those are some great numbers for a backup running back. I mean, those are some surprisingly high numbers. And I know a lot of sites have him ranked a little bit lower than me, but I got to bump him up there because of 8 touchdowns and because he was in that passing game.
11 total touchdowns, actually.
Well, yeah, 11 total. He rushed for 8. He caught for 11. And because he got 400 yards in the passing game. 400 yards in the passing game as a backup. So, I mean, he almost had 1,000 yards combined, but 11 touchdowns. I mean, he finds his way in. And we got Spencer Ware at 21. I want to put him further up. But I don't trust him. I don't know about you, Rob. What do you think? What are you making of Ware? I don't trust him.
Well, I put him at number 15, so I've got him in my tier 3. So I trust him more than you do, obviously. And, for me, I don't have any, major red flags or concerns. He is a starting running back. Now, they did draft Hunt, but they took him later. And so right now, I mean, to me, he's about as safe as you get into that tier 3,
Yeah, and then finally rounding out this tier is Marshawn Lynch. I don't like this guy. Avoid this guy. I think he's nothing but trouble. But I also think that job is mostly his right now. I think he's a talented back who is going to be at least healthy. He probably shouldn't be struggling with injuries as he just took a year off. And in the 5-yard line is where they're going to carry it with him. And we've seen throughout his career, if you give him the ball on the 5-yard line, he'll get in the end zone. He just will. That's how he is. He's a powerful, aggressive back. I tell you what, if I was playing linebacker, I looked up and he was there, I'd step out of the way, I let him run, and I wouldn't want to hit the guy. So Marshawn Lynch, I think he's a bit of a risk, but I put him at 22. Like I said, avoid him. He's one of those players that's kind of his peak that I can put him at. I don't think he's going to beat that number. Man, I've been rattling on for a while. What about you, Rob? What about your next tier, your tier 4 guys?
So here I go with my tier 4 guys. My number 17 in my tier 4, okay, is Paul Perkins. I think he's another possible steal. You could say sleeper. And I think he did a lot to establish himself as a lead back. In the last 4 games of the regular season, he finished with double-digit carries, and during that time, his yards per carry went up to 4.37. He got stronger as his carries increased. And so if you're looking for a steal in the number 2 back, between rounds 3 to 7, this could be your guy, Paul Perkins. My number 18 guy is Joe Mixon. Because of off-the-field problems, he slipped in the draft, but a lot of experts felt like he was actually the most talented running back in the draft. And so I think he's in a great situation with Bernard recovering from ACL tear and Hill being somewhat ineffective last year and really a one-dimensional back. I like Joe Mixon for Cincinnati. My number 19 pick, and my third in tier 4 is Mike Gillislee. Now, I'm like you. I love this guy. Last 2 years, his yards per carry are 5.7. He's strong. He's big. He can do it all. I think he's going to take a lot of those touchdowns that Blunt had last year. He's not going to hit 18. Okay, he's not going to. But I think he could be a great back. In fact, I think he's the first running back since Corey Dillon that you could trust to be a good fantasy back for New England. But I will say this. Christian, you had him ranked highly, and you talked about how New England is a dynasty and they know how to win football games, and I would agree with you. I mean, I'm a Vikings fan, but I give all the respect to the Patriots. They're a great organization. They know how to win. Bill Belichick is a genius. Problem with that is Bill Belichick, when it comes to running backs, you can't trust the guy. And so for that reason, I like Mike Gillislee, and I like them as an organization. There's a difference between winning football games and making a player a great fantasy player.
That's very true. I tell you what, sometimes you're looking at New England and those running backs are a real one fumble and done. It's just with, a guy there can be a star for a couple weeks and then one fumble and he just disappears and his career is whisked into the wind and he's gone. And that is kind of a fear. If he has trouble with that, it could be an issue.
Well, look at, just think back to a player, Gray. Do you remember him? A couple years ago, he filled in. Jonas Gray. 4 TDs, 100 yards. Everybody thought he was going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. And before you know it, he's cut from the team because he overslept and missed a practice or was late into practice. So
single practice, mind you. It wasn't more than one. It was one.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he was known for being lazy. Maybe they didn't like him in some other areas. We don't know the whole story, but that's what we, as the public, know.
Yeah, we don't know the whole story, but I know this. Bill Belichick, he can be fickle. And just when you think you figured out who the guy is going to roll with in the backfield, he changes it up on you. So I like Mike Gillislee. He's number 19 for me. But once again, he's my tier 4. I can't put him in tier 3. Too many question marks there. My number 20 running back is Ty Montgomery. I'm not sold on Ty yet. I haven't drank the Kool-Aid. Okay, he's a converted wide receiver. Last year he looked great. I just don't know if he can take 200 carries a season, if he can be that go-to guy. Now, what bodes well for him is that Green Bay did not aggressively pursue another running back until the 3rd round or later in the draft. So it either tells us they have a lot of confidence in Ty, or they don't mind if Rodgers airs it out 40-plus times a game. And I'm more apt to believe that they're just comfortable with Rodgers airing the ball out 40-plus times a game. Once again, I got him number 20. You can't ignore him. I will say this. If you're in a PPR league, you can bump Ty up a few spots on your rankings. Number 21, Marshawn Lynch. That's my guy, number 21 there. He's a starter, and so that bodes well for him. Beyond that, he's on the wrong side of 30 at 32 years of age. His backup Washington and Richards are very talented and capable. They're going to steal touches from him. And he struggled the year before he got hurt and then inevitably took that next year off. Now he's coming out of retirement. He's playing for his hometown Raiders. It's a great story, but it doesn't make him a great fantasy back. Once again, he's my number 21 guy. Number 22, Mark Ingram. Another one. I feel bad for this guy. I love him. Broke 1,000 yards. Started catching the ball in the backfield 2 years ago. They signed Adrian. He's going to take away carries. That's all I've got to say about Mark Ingram. Number 23, LeGarrette Blount. Okay, so here's the deal. If I'm the coach of Philadelphia, I want to take pressure off my young quarterback. How do you do that? You run the ball, and you run the ball with somebody who's big and physical and more dependable than Ryan Matthews. LeGarrette Blount is that guy. So I think he's going to be solid at number 23. Number 24, Amir Abdullah. Okay. He's shown flashes of being great. In some ways, he reminds me of Barry Sanders when you watch him run the ball. Obviously, the one red flag, and this is a big red flag, is can he stay on the field and stay healthy? Once again, right now he's slotted to be the number 1 guy in Detroit, and he's got a lot of talent. I put him at number 24. Number 25, Christian McCaffrey. So let's pick it up again here. We had a little technical difficulty, but my number 25 in my tier 4 is Christian McCaffrey. Okay, right now I don't think he's going to unseat Stewart right away. He's a little small to be your every down back. I think he's going to have to prove himself before he can become that guy, but here's why he's going to be relevant early on. This draft is loaded with a lot of quality running backs and a lot of running backs that can catch the ball well in the backfield, but all the experts across the board, hands down, believe that Christian McCaffrey has the best hands of any of the running back. And so immediately he's going to be a part of the game. And once again, I see him have an immediate impact at the pro level because of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. My number 26 guy is Tevin Coleman. Tevin's another guy that is loaded with talent, but he's in a crowded backfield. But he's one Freeman injury away from being a top 10 running back. He's a guy I would love to draft, sit on my bench, and just wait for that opportunity. Once again, Tevin Coleman, number 26. Sitting at number 27 is C.J. Anderson. Now, right now, somebody's got to run the ball for Denver, and it looks like it's going to be him. Not real big on it per se, but once again, somebody's got to run the ball. He's pegged the starter at this point. The one thing that I would track leading up to the start of the season is Jamal Charles. Right now, Jamal Charles is brought in. Now, he's a guy that probably has enough left, maybe for a year or two, if he's recovered from his injury. And if he does, as we know, Jamal Charles has been a great back, and he's proven himself that he can certainly succeed at that level. And so, once again, number 27 is C.J. Anderson. But keep an eye on Jamal Charles, and we'll keep you updated on his progress as we get closer to the season. Number 20, I got Delvin Cook. Now, here's the thing with Delvin Cook. Right now, the Vikings staff and coaches are saying he looks great. They're impressed with everything he's doing. He's learning the game. He's explosive. He's everything that they expected he would be. The problem with that is that how many teams don't say that about all the draft picks? Unfortunately, right now, everybody looks like the next Walter Payton. But once again, I still believe that he's a real deal. I do think that he's going to take about 4 to 5 weeks to really make an impact, and here's why. The starter currently is Latavius Murray. And Latavius is not a great back, but he's definitely a proven back. He can block well, he can catch the ball in the backfield, and he's a decent runner. So I think it's going to take about maybe 4 to 5 weeks for Delvin to really kind of increase the carries, to have a significant impact. But once again, he's a guy that I like about 5 to 6 weeks in. He's certainly a guy to keep an eye on when it comes to dynasty leagues. Number 20 is Delvin Cook. My number 29 pick. I even hate to talk about drafting this guy, and I'm not going to take him. I'll let somebody else take him. But we got to count him up there because he's a starter. And at this point, just having a starter warrants a look. And so my number 29 guy is Frank Gore. And I love this running back, but he's 34 years old. And in running back terms, he might as well be 70 years old. Once again, there's going to have to be a regression. There's going to have to be a falling off, and I believe this is the year. There's only so long, I think, that he can turn back
time, as they say.
Yeah, so I think this is the year that it catches up to him. Once again, I like Frank Gore, but I don't think he can continue to do it. But because he is a starter and he doesn't have a dominant number 2 guy at this point, you got to include him. He's my number 29. My number 30 back is Robert Kelly. What you see is what you get. He's not flashy. He's a one-cut back that runs really hard. But I don't think he's great. And for that reason, I think, once again, he's going to start the year as a starter. But I don't think he's a long-term answer right now for Washington. but he is my number 30 guy, Robert Kelly. So Christian, what about your tier 4 running backs?
All right, so my the guy leading off my tier 4. In fact, my first my tier 4 running back, my top tier 4 running back is 23rd on the rankings, and it's Frank Gore. I like how you bumped him down, and maybe there's a chance I didn't bump him down enough, but I think that we're going to see that he's not going to have too much of a regression. Now, last year he got 1,000 yards, or a little over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, and I think we might see him take a step back in that yardage category, but I don't see imagine his touchdowns going anywhere. He's the workhorse back, especially as they get in the end zone and on the goal line. If you're Indianapolis, he's the only guy you want in there punching it in, so I got to keep him up there just a little bit due to that. However, I like what you said. I don't want to take him. If I have to take him, I'm going to handcuff him with Marlon Mack and hope that maybe Marlon Mack takes the job and becomes a star, because I like to have elite running backs. And if my second starting running back is Frank Gore, I'm probably not going to be too happy about it, but you can't hate on the guy too much. He does it year in and year out. 24, Derrick Henry. He is going to leech away carries from DeMarco Murray this year. Derrick Henry, I love the guy. I imagine in a couple years he'll be getting 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns easily. That being said, he's only 24th for the reason that it's still DeMarco Murray's team. He's still the number 1 back. And so until then, until maybe towards the end of the season, it's just going to take him a while to gain those carries back and to prove himself. But I really like what he can do in the long term. So especially in a keeper or a dynasty league, got to take a shot on him. Like I said, that being said, he has a ceiling. Interesting, we have the Christian McCaffrey both ranked 25. That's my next guy, Christian McCaffrey. He comes up the list a lot. First of all, he's young, and Stewart is kind of on his way out. And say, the Panthers are going to be getting McCaffrey and using him and learning how he's going to fit in that offense and be a pivotal role in their success. We love his hands. Originally, when I looked at him, I thought, man, he's like a reincarnation of Danny Woodhead. But I'll tell you, he's one step better because he can run the ball, something that Danny Woodhead can't do. I'm just fine also pounding the ball with McCaffrey. However, they won't need him to. They have Stewart, so that kind of limits him a bit. But if Stewart gets hurt, he could easily climb up these rankings very fast. 26 is C.J. Anderson. Don't know what to think of the guy, man. When Charles comes in, Charles can really take away some carries. Or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe we've seen the end of the Jamal Charles era. And if we have, maybe we can bet on C.J. Anderson to be an okay running back. That being said, he's not that talented. I think 26 is kind of his ceiling. I don't think he's going to get much higher than that. I mean, he's not in that system, that bad offensive line, and he's just not impressive. He's not really shown us much, and he doesn't keep involved in the passing game. So 27, I have Eddie Lacy. You have Eddie Lacy a lot higher than I do, and we kind of got some disagreements about that. But I put him there because he's going to get his shots, and he is a bruising running back. But I keep him off there because he's not great in the pass game. He hasn't really shown us what we were expecting from him, and he's got a low yards per carry. Additionally, since Marshawn Lynch left, they have been running it with tons of backs and haven't found their man, and I don't think that Lacy is either. This one, people don't like this one. Giovanni Bernard, I think he's going to come back from that injury just fine. And I tell you what, they're not happy with Hill. They drafted Mixon, and I like Mixon, and I think that Mixon could easily have a great career in the NFL, easily make that his team, his role in the future. But Giovanni Bernard in the pass game is so valuable to that team that he will get his plays. In fact, he's even going to get some carries too. I think he'll find the end zone a little bit this year. He's a weapon that they can't afford to not use. 29 is Danny Woodhead. I like Danny Woodhead in that system. They've added some weapons, spread out the field, and that was the final piece that Baltimore needed. He's going to come out of the backfield and has a lot of value in PPR. That being said, 29th might be a bit high for him if you're not in a PPR league. If you're in a standard league or a keeper league, I might bump him down a bit, and he's a guy I might avoid. He doesn't have much upside other than that. Next is 30th, Jonathan Stewart. Got to keep Stewart up there. Even though I like what McCaffrey can do, it's still Stewart as the big bruiser pounding running back, and I still think he's going to get his carries this year. 31 is Duke Johnson. He's a very talented player. I think he's one Crowell injury away from being a top 15 or at least a top 20 fantasy scoring running back. And additionally, at the beginning of last year, a lot of people predicted it would be Duke Johnson would be the man in Cleveland. And I think that Cleveland even thought it as well and kind of started off the season giving him more carries, and that faded as he struggled a little bit. But I think they're going to give him some more shots this year. 32 is Joe Mixon. Like I said earlier, I'm excited to see what he can do. However, I feel that it may take some time. I think if he struggles with some fumbles or his yards per carry are a bit low, or if Bernard is as good as I'm expecting him to be, that it's just simply going to take him a while to earn his touches, especially in an NFL that is so competitive. 33 is Ty Montgomery. Avoid this guy. I don't want to draft this guy. He's got some value in PPR leagues, but it's just a matter of time till he loses his job. However, got to put him at 33 because, man, he catches the ball, and he catches the ball on a team that is constantly throwing it. So how can you ignore that? 34 is Charles Sims. I think with Martin out for suspension, it'll give him a few games to maybe come in and take that role, or at least get his majority of carries and show what he can do. And I think when he does, I'm excited to see maybe he can really capitalize on that. 35 is Dalvin Cook. I have to keep him at 35 because I don't know how he's going to do on the ground game, but I think he'll be involved in the pass game. But that Vikings offensive line is simply too bad for him, and he's too small at only 5'11", 211 pounds to be a big, bruising running back. Right behind him is Latavius Murray. I rank him a little bit behind Cook because Murray's a little bit older. He's had kind of a history of disappointment, but he can still run the ball. He's still a good one-cut running back, and I think that he's a nice addition for Minnesota. However, I would avoid reaching too high for him. Finally, at 37, and this is my last guy in this tier, is Theo Riddick. A lot like a lot of these other guys, he really keeps himself in the passing game, and Detroit does not have their running back. And you know what happened last year? They couldn't find their guy, and they really struggled. And Theo Riddick stepped up, and I think that he's going to continue to step up, and that Detroit is going to continue to have faith in him. Once again, last year he caught 5 touchdowns. That's a lot of receiving touchdowns to get. So if you're looking at his rushing yards and thinking that's just too low for me to justify it, remember he plays an enormous role in that passing game. All right, Rob, what about you? What are your final notes and your final tier, as we're going to call it? It's a little bit different, I believe, correct?
Yeah, so here's the deal. Instead of ranking these number 30 through number 70 like some things do, here's what I chose to do. Some of these players we're going to have here are going to fluctuate as we get closer to the season based on camp progression, injuries, how well they're doing. Some of them are going to turn out to be solid by-week fill-ins. Others are going to have long-term potential, and some might even have a really good year, although not a lot from this final group will. But here's where I think a lot of places go wrong. They'll try to rank all the way through number 70, and I think that's a huge mistake because if we're being honest, those rankings were done back in April, May, or June, and so much can and will change between now and then. And so can you honestly expect to take a magazine or a ranking sheet based on information in April that's 4 months old and draft based on that? To me, that's foolishness. So here's what I've chose to do. If you go to our site, Fantasy Football Profits, that's fantasyfootballprofits with an S.com. If you go down to my rankings, what you're going to see is what I call trends. Players that are neutral, trending up or down based on information. So daily, if not weekly, you're going to get updated trends on how they're doing in the preseason, how they're progressing. We'll talk about coach and camp information, things that are coming in to trend these guys up or down. So when you get into your draft in August, early September there, you can have up-to-date information in terms of who you want to take a look at. And so here are my trends right now. Currently, I have trending upward Derrick Henry. Derrick's going to see increased carries he did at the end of last season. He's a big physical back. He's great pick in dynasty leagues. Unfortunately, stuck behind Murray. I think he's 1 year away from stardom. The other guy I like that's trending upward is Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack, yeah. And the reason why I like him, simply put, is Gore's getting old. And so I think they're looking for that heir apparent, and I think he could be that guy. And I want to keep an ey on is Perine, the Washington rookie running back. Once again, if you look at Kelly, he's kind of a one-trick pony, as they say. Runs hard, runs physical, but that's basically it. And so this guy could certainly make a move. I like Jaquez Rogers. Now, I think he's going to be a lot like D'Angelo Williams was last year. I think he's got huge value for the first 3 weeks while Martin is suspended. After that, I don't think he's got a lot, so he's got a fairly low ceiling. But once again, for 3 weeks, he'd be a good fill-in. I also like Terrence West and Danny Woodhead, but for them, it's the same reason, only for the first 4 games during Dixon's suspension. Here's who I have trending down of those guys. Giovanni Bernard. Unlike you, I'm not a Bernard guy. I think he's coming off an ACL injury. They drafted Mixon. That leaves his value very low. Kenneth Dixon. The suspension kills the guy. A guy who, by the way, before the suspension, hadn't done very well.
All right. All right, so yeah, as we were talking, when you're getting down to these guys who are ranked, 38, 39, 40 and lower, that's starting to get beyond that realm of what we can know right now. The thing is, you have to be willing to admit that there's a lot of talent there. We're going to simply, a lot of times, we're going to keep updating. We're waiting for a little bit more information. A guy like a Marlon Mack, I'm really excited about, but we need to wait a little bit more to bump him any higher. We need to find out if maybe Gore is aging, if they plan on keeping him in there, or just make sure that it doesn't get injured before the season starts, Simple things like that. I agree with you on Marlon Mack. That's a guy that I'll be watching. Kareem Hunt is a player that I think he could surpass Ware for carries possibly. Just simply because they drafted him and they wanted so bad. And if he does surpass him for carries, Hunt could be very lights out.
Well, here's the key, I think, to overcoming really a lot of question marks at the running back position. To me, the key is depth on your bench. You load up your bench with a lot of running backs, and you're going to probably have 2 or 3 guys that may not hit, but if you have 4 or 5 backs there, maybe even 6 backs, including your bench, it's going to be able, if you have question marks, injuries, whatnot, you'll eventually hit and you'll nail. So the key is having depth on your bench. I'll continue my trend of those that I see are trending downwards. Jeremy Hill, they drafted Mixon, enough said. Another guy trending down is Ryan Matthews. They signed Blunt, and that says an awful lot. I think Matthews actually has more tools than Blunt, but he just can't stay healthy. Another guy that's trending downwards for me is Latavius Murray. Now, reports are Cook is looking good. He's picking up the offense and the blocking schemes. Now, I think Murray's gonna have value kind of weeks 1 through 4. As Cook learns the offense and gets kind of used to the speed of the game and how physical the NFL is. And so I see that he's going to have some value kind of the first 4 weeks, but then you're going to see a drop off. Another guy is Jonathan Stewart that I see trending downwards. And James White, he had a strong year last year. He's huge in PPR leagues, but the signer Rex, Gillislee, and Lewis really hurts his value. Now here's some of these other guys that I'll leave at I think are kind of neutral right now. I just want to see more information. I got Rex Burkhead. When he got signed, he looked like he'd be a great fit for New England, but there's just too many mouths to feed right there. Jamal Charles, another guy that I really just want to see some more information. I want to see how his health is. I want to watch once they get to camp. Matt Forte, great running back, but once again, he's getting near the end of his career here. Doug Martin. Doug Martin's another guy that for me is neutral. He's facing a 3-game suspension, and he's been hit or miss in his career. He's had a couple seasons that were all-pro, phenomenal, and then he had some seasons where they're pretty terrible. And so we'll wait and see heading into like week 1 or 2 what we're hearing. Is he in shape? Indications Tampa Bay planning on using him. Adrian Peterson's another guy that's neutral. I think he's got some gas in his tank, but he's competing for carries with Ingram, which, by the way, Ingram's a very good back. Here's another guy that I have kind of neutral. Maybe he should be trending downward, but that's Bilal Powell. One, I know a lot of people are excited how well he performed down the stretch, but one, he's not young. He's 28. He's on a poor offense. He's got a good veteran in Forte he's splitting carries with. And stay away from the hype. Here's what I would say. There's a reason why this guy was a backup for the first 6 seasons he was in the league. I've got Procise, Rawls, Richard, Riddick. All those guys fall in what I call that neutral territory. And for me, Theo Riddick only has value in PPR leagues once again. I also got Chris Thompson, Shane Vereen, DeAndre Washington, and Jonathan Williams, all neutral. Now, Jonathan Williams only has value if McCoy gets hurt, although McCoy has been banged up in his career and he has missed some games, so he's a guy once again to keep an eye. If you draft McCoy maybe not a bad idea to handcuff him with Williams. So those are my trends. Once again, check out the website, and we'll keep you up with up-to-date information on these players.
Yeah, so we've kind of gone over some of these guys, and I feel like maybe we touched on these deeper running backs a little bit less than we'd like to. And we understand if you're kind of disappointed, this is where a lot of teams go from being good to great, or bad to good, or maybe even bad to great, whatever. But we're actually going to come up with a second video later. Like you said, like we were talking about, there are just so many things that can happen. So many things that are going to change as far as how we perceive these players. It's so unpredictable when you're talking about running backs at this level, like a Samaje Perine, who could very well be the starting running back and be a star. But at the same time, we haven't seen anything from him. And so he could very well be out of the NFL in a year or two. And so we're going to continue doing more research on this. And in a week or maybe two or whatever, as soon as we feel comfortable that we have maybe a closer, more all-encompassing understanding of these players, then we'll come out with a video of just these deep running backs, these sleepers that you need to take shots on, and these players that value stocks are going down. Because that's the other thing. You don't just want to hit on good players. You also got to avoid, some of these guys are ticking time bombs or draft picks that if you take them, a lot of times you're just wasted. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you think. Like our Facebook page. Check out our website. And as always, subscribe. You guys have a great day.